Hello everybody and welcome to Gene's Reviews from a regular dude here in my car. If you're already subscribed, thank you very much. If you're not subscribed yet, please think about doing so. Make sure you tap that bell icon so you can be notified every single time I upload a new video. Also, give me a thumbs up if you don't mind. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm. Helps them push my video out a little bit more. And if you like this video, make sure you share it with all your friends, leave comment, all that fun stuff. And if you stick around till the end, I have a joke at the end of every single video that I do. Okay, today we're going to check one out from Most Amazing Top 10. This is Top 10 Sinister Prophecies from the past that are starting to come true. So let's check this out.
Don't you understand what I'm trying to say? Don't you understand? Come on, man.
Well, in the year 2000, I think I'll probably be in a spaceship to the moon dictating to robots.
But what about the city of the day after tomorrow, say the year 2000? I think it will be completely different. In fact, it may not even exist at all.
From Nostradamus' warning of widespread
2000?
civil unrest, to the Mayan calendar predicting a global transformation, and even modern-day mysteries like the Georgia Guidestones hinting at a future we might not be ready for, these are the top 10 sinister prophecies from the past that are coming true. Baba Vanga, the mystic known for her eerie predictions, foretold of a lot. Some of her predictions are believed to have already come true, some are said to be unfolding as we speak. For example, the increase in cyber attacks. Just recently, there were reports of hackers breaching US internet service providers Verizon and AT&T. Hackers linked to the Chinese government infiltrated the networks of several US companies, and apparently they gained access to systems that handle court-authorized wiretaps. And these breaches could have been going on for months. The operation was carried out by a Chinese hacking group called Salt Typhoon in order to see what the US government was monitoring regarding Chinese interests. Verizon has reportedly set up a war room in Virginia, working closely with the FBI, Microsoft, and Google's cybersecurity branch. Officials haven't confirmed whether actual lists of surveillance targets were accessed, but the case is pretty alarming. Here's a piece from the Bible, 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 5. In the last days, men will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, haughty, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, disloyal, having no natural affection, not open to any agreement, slanderers, without self-control, fierce, without love of goodness, betrayers, headstrong, puffed up with pride, lovers of pleasures rather than lovers of God, having an appearance of godliness but proving false to its power.
See a lot of that.
Leaving any religious stuff aside if you want, there's a lot of people that really scream this prophecy, don't they? I'm looking like at the Andrew Tates of the world. Obviously, people like this have always existed, but I think with the internet, it's now allowed these people to gather and just have more kind of an influence on the world, and that's a pretty scary thing.
Yeah, it is.
Another Baba Vanga prediction was that humans would make contact with extraterrestrial beings by 2130. Now, that's still pretty far off, but in the grand scheme of things, 106 years really isn't all that long, and it does feel like we're on the cusp of finding alien life. Is there a chance we'll discover other life before this, though? Possibly. Baba could have been foretelling sentient alien life, not including simpler forms of life, and of course, her prediction just could be utter nonsense. One thing is clear, though, governments around the world and space agencies like NASA are taking steps to find and make contact with life beyond our planet. Just earlier in the week, NASA launched the Europa Clipper spacecraft, set to reach Jupiter's moon by 2031. The purpose of the mission? To see if there's life dwelling in the vast ocean surface. The so-called sleeping prophet Edgar Cayce claimed to have the ability to see into the future, and he made a series of predictions before his death in 1945,
Edgar
which
Cayce.
he also predicted. One of his prophecies was that there would be a third world war, which would break out sometime in the 21st century, and that it wouldn't be a traditional us versus them situation. Instead, he envisioned a war driven by tensions between global powers, with massive changes in the balance of power. He didn't name names explicitly, but he talked a lot about Russia, the United States, and the Middle East. Let's look at pieces of this puzzle that seem to maybe be lining up. Russia is obvious. Many are worrying that if things continue to escalate, we could see a broader conflict there. Case predicted that the US and Russia would be involved in whatever this great war is, though he didn't give a timeline. Then there's the Middle East. In his prophecies, Case warned about upheaval in this region as well, which
I'm most
might sound
worried
a bit
about.
obvious considering the region's history, but still, looking at current events, yeah. Now, Case's prophecy didn't just stop at the war itself. He also predicted major shifts in geography and climate that would follow. Some believe this could refer to environmental disasters and economic collapse, which, let's face it, are issues we're already seeing signs of today. All right, moving on to a prediction that's more grounded in numbers and science. Heinz von Forster wasn't a supposed psychic, but rather a serious scientist, a cybernetician to be exact, who co-wrote a study back in 1960 on overpopulation. Forster used a mathematical formula to predict the future of human population growth, and the conclusion wasn't very optimistic. According to his calculations, if birth rates kept rising at the same pace, the world population would reach dangerous numbers by November 13th, 2026. Very specific. In other words, if nothing changed, we'd have a planet full of people with no space
Not quite
left.
2 years
Warned
from
that
now.
if we didn't curb those birth rates, our great-grandchildren wouldn't starve to death. They'd be, quote, squeezed to death. With that many people, resources like food, water, and space would be stretched way beyond capacity. It would be less about a lack of food and more about being physically unable to fit everyone in a way that could allow for
I think it's
quality of
more
life.
going to be
Now,
the food
I don't think things are
that's gonna
as
be the
doom and
problem.
gloom as he put it there.
Right.
But there are some truths here. We're seeing issues starting to pop up. Cities are more overcrowded than ever. Infrastructure in certain areas is struggling to keep up, and the strain on resources is growing. We're not in doomsday territory just yet, but the cracks are starting to show. Nostradamus is another reputed seer who made a ton of predictions about the future, some of which people have said are eerily accurate to events that would play out later. Every year, his prophecies are brought up again by people who really seem excited about the world ending. One thing Nostradamus foretold was a rise in catastrophic natural disasters. The dry earth will grow more parched, and there will be great floods when it is seen, he wrote. Some of Nostradamus's biggest fans are pointing to some of the recent disasters we've seen. There were a few big hurricanes this year: Beryl, Milton, and Helene, the deadliest hurricane to hit the mainland United States since Katrina in 2005. And over 1,000 people died in Afghanistan and Pakistan in 2024 thanks to flash flooding. Now, of course, natural disasters are natural. They're just part of life on Earth. They happen every year, but they're said to be getting deadlier and more frequent. So is Nostradamus's prophecy about deadly natural disasters being a sign of the end times actually unfolding before us? I hope not.
I hope not too, but I think we got a ways
All right,
to go
if you've
yet.
never heard of the Georgia Guidestones, listen up. So these massive stones erected in 1980 in rural Georgia are often referred to as America's Stonehenge. They had these inscriptions, 10 guidelines engraved on them in 8 different languages, which read like some kind of strange, almost ominous commandments for humanity's future. We still don't know for sure who paid for these stones or what their true intent was. The inscriptions, though, cover everything from maintaining world peace to protecting nature. One of the most famous guidelines says, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. 500 million people, which, when you consider that the current world population is over 8 billion, that number seems a little extreme. And that's just one of the guidelines. The others talk about protecting nature, warnings about global unrest, and the need to establish a new world government. Looking around today, a lot of the things they warned about are starting to feel a little relevant, especially when it comes to global unrest. The Georgia Guidestones were mysteriously destroyed in 2022 after a bomb went off at the site. We still don't know exactly what the situation was there. Next, let's talk about the fall of the Roman Empire. And it might not seem like a prophecy at first in the traditional sense, but stay with me. The Roman Empire, as you probably know, was the most powerful civilization in the Western world for hundreds of years, but eventually it crumbled. Why was that? Well, historians point to a mix of things: declining military strength, economic troubles, political corruption, and of course a series of invasions by barbarian tribes. Now, what's eerie is that some scholars and thinkers over the years have suggested that modern civilizations, especially in the West, are on a similar path. The philosopher Arnold Toynbee, who argued that societies rise and fall in cycles, said that just like Rome, great civilizations face a moment when they either adapt or collapse. Look at the debt problems in the US, Europe, and other major world powers right now. Economics are stretched thin by massive debt and social unrest. We're also seeing a lot of dysfunction in governments today. Political parties seem more interested in power than actually solving problems. Some would say that's always been the case, but anyway. Voters are also more divided, though, than they have been in years. If the Roman Empire could fall, what's stopping modern empires from suffering the same fate? And speaking of civil unrest, let's go back to Nostradamus for a moment. He's also said to have predicted massive civil unrest. He's got quatrains that some believe refer to revolution, war, and societal collapse. The great city will be full of unrest. The people will revolt, and the streets will run red with the BLOOD of the fallen, he writes. Now, of course, Nostradamus' writings are pretty vague. You could argue that this could apply to a number of historical events, but in recent years, we have seen this explosion in protests and civil unrests around the world, from Hong Kong to France, the US to Iran. People are taking to the streets in record numbers. And look, protesting, not a bad thing, but the fact that they're needing to happen in the first place definitely is. It's clear that the world is experiencing this collective frustration. Hopefully, though, instead of this being the beginning of the end, maybe it could be the sign of a new beginning.
That's what I'm hoping.
And speaking of new beginnings, let's look at the Mayan calendar. Yeah, kind of a retro talking point. What is this, 2010? Yeah, we all remember the Mayan calendar, 2012, end of the world craze, if you're old enough to remember it anyway. Back in the 2000s, everyone was freaking out that the ancient Maya had predicted the world would end on December 21st of 2012. Spoiler alert, we did not get apocalypsed on that day. But what if the Mayans weren't actually predicting the end of the world in a literal sense? What if they were predicting a transformation, a shift in human consciousness? I remember people even at the time thinking that this might have been what they were talking about. The Maya created this extremely complex calendar system that spanned thousands of years. The end of their long count calendar was December 21st of 2012, and it was seen by some as the end of a cycle. But the key word there is cycle, not necessarily the end of the world, but the end of an era and the beginning of something new, a transformation. Now, you could say in the years following 2012, a lot changed, and fast. We're living in a world where major societal changes are happening at a pretty unprecedented rate. It's this ramp-up effect. Certain events beginning in 2020, for example, completely transformed how we live and work and interact. Governments around the world shifted their policies, economies struggled, and in a lot of places, people came together and were divided like they had never been before.
More division.
On top of that, we're seeing all these rapid advances in technology, shifts in global power. More people are waking up to social and environmental issues these days. The last decade has felt like the world has been in a constant state of change, like we're on the verge of something massive. Maybe the Mayans were hinting that we're heading into a period of spiritual and societal transformation, a kind of global awakening, if you will. Many people have started talking about things like mindfulness. People are meditating more. I don't know, just looking at the positive side here. With all that said, though, I've been your host, James, and I'll catch you, yes, you specifically.
Well, that was pretty interesting. A lot of it I actually don't understand, to be totally honest with you. I think a lot of these prophecies to people are basically just guessing, but I guess some of them could be real prophets. Who knows? I believe some of the stuff. I don't know, though. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Now it's time for a joke. I saw two mimes today having sex. They were doing unspeakable things to each other.